Thanks to everyone who's joining. I appreciate you all hopping into the breakout room. I'm going to go ahead and start a very brief presentation in about 1 minute or so, but definitely would love to hear from you all just how your night is going so far. What are you most looking forward to learning from the presentation today?
I'm the interpreter, so if anyone needs interpretation.
Thank you. Appreciate it. So thank you all again for joining. I'm really happy to see the turnout. And I hope that the presentation this evening will answer some of the questions that you have as it relates to priorities for our 6th through 8th graders at Gary Comer Middle School. And if not, I'll definitely be available for some follow-up questions at the end of this session. So I want to very briefly introduce myself. My name is Ina Briggs, and I am the Dean of Instruction for Humanities at GCMS. I've been there for 4 years now. My first 3 years were as a classroom teacher, and I've transitioned into this role just this past year. And I'm really excited about the possibilities for the school year, despite all of the challenges we've been experiencing so far with remote learning. And what I'm really confident about is the fact that as parents, as partners, together we can go ahead and make sure that our scholars are successful despite some of the adversities that we know that they've been experiencing. Before I do get into the brief presentation, I want to share that we are going to be holding a parent office hour sessions tomorrow during our normal pack time. So myself and the other Dean of Instruction for Math and Science will be available to talk about some of the other things that we may not get into today. So I just want to name that first because I know that our time today is a little bit limited, but we do have an hour and a half planned tomorrow. So if you're capable or if you're able to join tomorrow, we look forward to seeing you. Some of the topics that we want to focus on are the grading policy, asynchronous instruction, schedule changes as we go into our second semester. And then finally, we do want to get feedback just around how we can continue to support you and your family through the process of remote learning. I know we have an interpreter on the call, so if I need to pause, just let me know, Jose.
Just wanted to check if there is interpretation needed. So I didn't see that, but if they can let me know in the chat so that I can interpret, that would be great.
Okay, perfect. If anyone does need interpretation, please go ahead and post that into the chat, and we'll make sure that that does happen.
Just a quick translation. Si alguien necesita alguna forma de interpretación, por favor déjame saber en el chat para entonces poder comunicar con ustedes.
So we are going to talk very briefly about the focal points for each of our grade levels. And after being able to check in with our grade level leads, they did discuss that there were some common themes across the board for each grade level that we would love to reiterate tonight. The first one is time management. The second is self-advocacy, and the last is utilizing interventions. So I'm going to talk a little bit about what we mean as it relates to these focal points, and then there'll be space for you all to ask questions. So first, we want to just kind of talk about making the most of remote learning and how to increase success remotely. So there are a few bullet points here that we just want to reiterate that, again, across the board, whether your child is in 6th, 7th, or 8th, we've identified as being areas we would really love to make sure we strengthen in our partnership to help them continue to be successful. And the first is helping your child to create a weekly schedule with the breakdown of what assignments to complete each day. What we've noticed is that some of our scholars are struggling to complete the work because they just simply haven't created a routine or a schedule where they're aware of how to best utilize their time. We also want to make sure that students are taking advantage of the time they have during their sessions to complete work. So going into the the second semester, we are going to be giving additional time in our synchronous sessions so that students can actually get started on their asynchronous work. And we hope that they will utilize that time more now that they have more time going into this second semester. The third is decreasing distractions at home, if at all possible. And we know that we are all busy, and this has, really rerouted our schedules as parents and, our daily lives. But we do know that some of our scholars are battling, some distractions, whether it be television or phones. So if at all possible, just checking in and making sure that those things are not in the way of your child's learning.
I'll do a quick interpretation.
Thank you.
Ahora vamos a hablar sobre algunas formas que podemos ayudar a los estudiantes a mantener bien grados, etcétera, en sus clases. Primeramente, queremos ayudar a nuestros estudiantes a crear un horario en cual podemos completar las tareas asignadas. Segundo, queremos utilizar el tiempo de todas las sesiones para completar las tareas. Tercer, queremos minimar cualquier distracciones en el medio ambiente para enfocar el estudiante en sus tareas. Queremos también crear una estructura o una rutina para su hogar, para poder formar un medio ambiente de aprendizaje. Igualmente queremos apoyar a los estudiantes que puedan usar sus cámaras para poder mantener conexión con sus maestros. Y también queremos monitorear el progreso y dar respuestas o apoyos verbalmente a sus estudiantes, apoyando lo que somete sus tareas en tiempo. Thank you.
Thank you. So just to pick up, another one of the areas we think can continue to be strengthened is creating a structured daily routine for at-home learning. So we know that our scholars strive on predictability and structure. So if they're kind of in the habit of waking up at the same time, obviously logging on to their classes at the same time each day, having lunch, and then having a set routine for when they will complete their asynchronous work or additional work outside of the synchronous sessions, that will definitely set them up for the most success. We do ask that you encourage cameras and engagement as well. We do not mandate that scholars have their cameras on, but what we have found just from student feedback and teacher feedback is that when their cameras are on, they are more engaged, they are more participatory, and they feel more connected and are able to build relationships. And we know that our middle schoolers especially really thrive on that social bonding. So really encouraging cameras when possible would be extremely helpful for our scholars and for our teachers. And then lastly, monitoring their progress and giving them feedback before they submit their work. And so oftentimes our scholars are waiting for, their teachers to grade the work and give it back to them. But we find that they would be a lot more successful if you are helping your scholar to just kind of look over the work, look at the success criteria. What do they need to know before they submit that work? As all of our teachers are outlining that success criteria in advance.
Entonces, como dije anteriormente, formando una estructura, una rutina es muy importante para todos estos estudiantes. Ellos se motivan más si siempre hacen las mismas rutinas y reglamentos, levantándose a la misma hora, haciendo su tarea en la misma hora. Estas rutinas son muy importantes para que se sientan apoyados y se sientan como están completando algo. También uso de cámara es muy importante porque queremos que los estudiantes y data dice que conectando nosotros con las cámaras da más conexión y familiaridad con el maestro y también empieza una relación bien positiva para poder continuar apoyándose mutuamente en las clases. Monitoreando el progreso y dándole a sus opiniones en las tareas es muy importante. Muchas veces los estudiantes esperan que ellos entreguen las tareas y esperando una respuesta de los maestros, pero también nosotros como padres, si podemos dar nuestra opinión en las tareas, sería muy beneficioso para los estudiantes y el progreso. Igualmente, podemos darle opiniones inmediatas y sin espera. Gracias.
Thank you. So continuing with self-advocacy, we know now that our scholars are in a position where they have to be more independent than in the past. We want to encourage independent skills for learning, whether they're in the building or remote. But now more than ever, they have to be able to track their progress, reach out to their teachers, and know what they're learning and when it's due, where to post it. So we definitely want to encourage them to be independent, asking questions every day, like, what did you learn? What assignments were due? And helping them to check their Google Classroom page would be extremely helpful for helping them to develop those skills.
Entonces, siendo su propia advocacia, tener abogacía personal es muy importante. Es siendo para que ellos puedan crecer en las áreas de independencia como aprendedor, igualmente monitoreando sus progresos y también poder hablar cuando tienen necesidades y necesiten apoyos en diferentes áreas.
Again, monitoring progress is extremely important, and we have two platforms where that information is provided for scholars and parents. One obviously is Google Classroom, and so just sitting with your child and going through the platform with them will help you to stay aware of what assignments are due and whether they've turned them in or not. But also, uh, Power School. And Power School is the main platform that we would like you to use. And one of the reasons why is because we do know that scholars have the ability to select turn in through Google Classroom, though the work may not necessarily be complete. And so we want to make sure that you are cross-checking that with Power School and ensuring that the scholar did turn in the assignment. And if it is not, it will be coded as missing. So monitoring progress is extremely important as it relates to self-advocacy. And then lastly, just reaching out and utilizing interventions. So if students are submitting work late, they definitely need to follow up with their teacher and inform their teacher that they've submitted the work late, so the teacher knows to be on the lookout for that and can go directly to the platform and find that assignment. And we just want to ensure that the scholar's grade does get recognized and put into Power School in an effective time. And then utilizing those interventions such as office hours. We know that every teacher offers or has been offering office hours during our first semester. And so as soon as a student notices that they need support, their grade is starting to slip, or if they have additional questions that can't be answered in that 45-minute session, they should certainly be joining the office hour sessions that have been provided.
So, en las tres áreas, independencia, sabemos que tenemos diferentes plataformas como PowerSchool y Google Classroom. Es importante usar las dos, ambas son importantes y siempre debemos de ser vigilantes en las dos plataformas para asegurarnos que en las clases Google Classroom ellos han entregado sus tareas, igualmente que reflexiona en el PowerSchool en sus grados. So, si hay algún momento hay alguna confusión, por favor, es importante de poder comunicarse con sus maestros. La segunda parte es monitoreando el progreso. Igualmente mirando a ambas plataformas, si alguna manera, alguna razón, su estudiante no entregó una asignación en la plataforma Google Classroom, pero no subió, es importante que si la tarea va a estar entregada tarde, que su estudiante le mande un correo electrónico a sus maestros indicando que el problema y que ha entregado su tarea aún siendo tarde. Y también utilizando las diferentes oportunidades para apoyo. Es importante que los estudiantes, si están notando que tienen alguna dificultad en alguna clase, de por favor entrar en estas horas de oficinas. Cada maestro tiene sus horas de oficina por si acaso que hay un estudiante que necesita algún apoyo adicional que no se pudo dar en los 45 minutos de sus clases. So hay muchas oportunidades de formas de apoyo para cada estudiante. Gracias.
So again, I was able to check in with our grade level lead teachers and just ask them, what are the messages you really want to make sure that our parents receive tonight? And so I want to give you a message directly from them. And I'm going to go ahead and read these key points that our seventh grade level lead definitely reiterated, but can be shared across the board. So grade updates occur weekly for each class. Please check Power School once a week. It is great to get in the habit of doing that every week, and that way you're never getting behind on assignments. However, please note that if a scholar completes an old assignment, they should email the teacher and then be patient until it is reflected in the grade book. So again, this just ties into what was mentioned in the previous slide around self-advocacy and making sure that the student is emailing their teacher and then waiting for that to be reflected in the grade book. Is it good for me to pause here, Jose? Okay.
Yes. So, ahora ella colectó algunos mensajes de algunos de los maestros en la escuela y una de las primeras mensajes es que debemos como padres y estudiantes chequear el sistema, la plataforma Power School, aunque sea una vez a la semana, porque debemos de notar que si el estudiante entrega una tarea antigua, necesitamos de mandarle un correo electrónico al maestro para dejarle saber que se ha entregado y sea paciente para que después se pueda reflexionar el grado en la plataforma Power School. Thank you.
Secondly, please be aware that Google Classroom is not always an accurate representation of completed work or grades. So please refer to PowerSchool for information if you want to know if a student has completed the work or if you want to know what their grade is. Google Classroom has features that students can mark as done, even though at times we know that that may not necessarily be the case. So just again, reiterating that Google Classroom is where you can see where this teacher has posted the assignment, but doesn't always reflect what the student has done.
So, igualmente, como estábamos diciendo, usando las diferentes plataformas como Google Classroom y PowerSchool son importantes, pero queremos dejarles saber una cosa muy importante, que el Google Classroom no siempre reflexiona las tareas completas y los grados. Para los grados siempre debemos chequear a la plataforma PowerSchool para informarnos sobre las tareas, los grados, etc. Igualmente, Google Classroom tiene algunas áreas en cual un estudiante puede marcar completo en una tarea, aunque no esté completo. Entonces no reflexiona los grados exactos como en el sistema PowerSchool, pero siempre tenemos que tener un poco de paciencia para que podamos subir las nuevas asignaciones y grados al sistema PowerSchool. Thank you.
Thank you. And then the last point is just to reiterate, when you are searching PowerSchool, you can match the assignment date to the work that is posted on Google Classroom, and that just makes it easier for you to locate that missing work.
Igualmente, en el sistema PowerSchool podemos mirar y comparar las fechas de las asignaciones en PowerSchool, igualmente con las fechas de las asignaciones en Google Classroom para localizar cualquier tarea que todavía no se ha entregado. Gracias.
So again, I didn't want to take up too much of the time with the focal points, but hopefully that was what you needed to hear as it related to self-advocacy, utilizing the interventions that we have, and some of the strategies for really strengthening our partnership as it relates to remote learning. But I want to reiterate again that we are holding a parent office hour session tomorrow from 4:30 to 5:30, and we'll be talking more about asynchronous instruction, the grading policy and schedule changes, and getting your feedback as well.
Ojalá que lo que estábamos comunicando es algo muy importante y que les sirvió de alguna referencia. Igualmente vamos a tener unas horas de oficinas para los padres en la forma de PAC el jueves, el día 21 a las 4:30 hasta las 5:30. Ahí vamos a hablar sobre aprendizaje remoto, las pólizas de grados, cómo poder dar nuestras opiniones, también cómo tratar con los cambios de horarios y todo. Muchas gracias.
Thank you. Perfect timing. Appreciate you, Jose.
Thank you.
Thank you. If you are still on, there is maybe about 2 minutes for Q&A. So if you have any questions, I'm going to go ahead and make myself available for those. If you want to mute yourself or you just want to post into the chat. All right, well, if there are no questions, again, I appreciate you all joining, and I hope to see you tomorrow at our PAC meeting.